She flew above the sun so high. She bent her brow to see.
The Transform Weekend is the first in a number of projects run by artists as part of the redevelopment of John Groats. The weekend was set up to celebrate the change that's about to happen to John Groats, the regeneration project funded by Highlands and Islands Enterprise and with their first partners, Natural Retreats and Heritage Great Britain. The weekend is therefore a celebration of change, which the community have been looking forward to for ages. The community have been involved in a number of the projects working with artists, and we've seen over the course of the weekend all of them coming back and involved in this fantastic weekend of weather and laughter and celebration. From the beginning, in talking to the community, it was obvious that they wanted artists to be involved, mainly because they felt that artists would add a real interest, a quality of the work that would come, and a distinctiveness to the design of the environment.
When you get to an end of a landmass, that's all it is, it's the end of a landmass. So in some ways it's quite hard to, associate anything else with it. It's a beautiful spot, but it's also a bit dismal. And there's something about places like this that people may have really high expectations when they come here, and they can be quite disappointed. Thankfully we had a great canvas, which was something that intrigued us in the first place, and being told that there was a potential to do whatever we wanted with it was good as well. So,
and I think as well the fact that it's not only a destination but a derelict hotel, and the fact that building holds all these memories of holidays and journeys and memories for people, and then we're just on the brink of a redevelopment of it, so it seemed like a really poignant time to reflect on childhood memories and on previous holidays. So we took that concept and then brought on the other artists involved who we've worked with previously, and just collaborated with them on that idea of playing on memories from childhood, and that's what's pulled all the different ideas in. The whole idea of childhood memories, once we started brainstorming with the guys on that, each one of them brought their own ideas to the table. So Martin with ideas of funfair and the circus and carnivals, and that's where the stripes and the diamonds and that whole kind of marquee look has developed from. And Fraser Gray had this idea of memories being associated with objects that seem really insignificant to other people but are really poignant to the individual, and he's taken those and grouped them all together on the opposite side in a really beautifully realistic freehand painted thing that from the pier actually looks like the objects are stuck to the wall. And then Mike was bringing in his ideas of holidays with his dad, caravanning and playing toy soldiers as a kid, and bringing those ideas along with other Scottish elements into it to kind of bring all these childhood memories together. And we were aware that that could become just a kind of fruit salad of stuff that didn't really sit well together. So one of the key things we've done is have everyone corresponding as their ideas were developing, so we could see where each other was going and how they would sit together. And then we also were really keen on restricting the colour palette to a set palette that was agreed beforehand, and that's helped to kind of gel the work and help it to sit as one. When we're obviously in such a open and beautiful space, we needed that to sit as a block.
Given the project was based around childhood nostalgia, thinking back to my own childhood, what brought upon me was travelling to places like the circus or the fairs, or travelling carnivals, things like that. How from a distance, you really get an impact of a lot of bright colours, which really draws you in to the sort of amusement of the place. But once you get there, you kind of realise it wasn't what it was built up in your head to be. So I want to try and kind of recreate that on the building, just trying to create it using the scale of it essentially to just dominate the skyline by painting really bright colours, so it would stand out from a distance. But then with the building being quite derelict, once you're up in sort of face value with it, it doesn't look as sort of appealing as what it might have further away. So it's trying to sort of balance that out, as well as trying to make the building temporarily more attractive. So.
The figures play around with belief systems, which is something I enjoy with the work, and they explore, I guess, what it means to be a Scottish child just now, using kind of these mythical Scottish child soldiers, and they have a combination of grass woven clothing, which originates from an outsider artist from South Uist called Angus McPhee, and he while in a hospital in Inverness during 50 years of silence used to weave clothes based on traditional techniques which he learned with his father on the croft, and these techniques date way back to 5,000 years ago, and they're combined with the sort of trainer culture that kids enjoy these days. So it's an examination through the clothing of two different, almost opposite belief systems. One which is a capitalist value system, which is right now, you know, with the banks and the state of the sort of worldwide collapse. It's never been closer to the surface in terms of, are we doing the right thing? And this ancient set of belief systems that's wrapped up in our culture. And the child soldier motif, it's not so much about the guns, although the kids were all playing and they had great fun. They played with their guns and they kind of enacted the latest PlayStation game, and effectively toy soldiers, as we all know. But it's more about questioning the way that child soldiers are actually extracted from their families, and then they're brainwashed or conditioned to accept a new set of values. And so it kind of felt like a nice marriage of the different ways of looking at childhood now, but also the adults they will become.
Yeah, I've painted the representational objects on the side of the turret. These objects I used to paint alongside figures as a way of exploring commercialisation and consumerism in our culture, and the objects kind of took on their own life and are now kind of represent that in a form, and also represent kind of the invested memories that we maybe have with these objects. So like I see them as being particularly nostalgic. When we were kind of approached with the brief of like John Groats and maybe thinking of nostalgic imagery of holidays, like I immediately thought of these plastic chairs that I've associated with every single trip that I've been to, every single cafe that I've never really enjoyed particularly, but is the only one, or every single thing. And I think it's a kind of definitive object of just pure form as well. So I've had these exploding out of the hotel in a big collapsing fashion, alongside other camping objects such as roll-up mattresses and chest of drawers and little bowls and plates and things that you would take on a camping trip with you. So I was kind of trying to, in a certain way, reflect the hotel's past with the objects as what it is, and kind of reflect what it kind of looks like on the inside now, which is like a bit of a wreck.
So I was wanting to talk about the building, it being a tragedy that it's got into such a state, but there's still a kind of positive element. Like you can go over things. You can no matter how wrecked things get, there's always a wee bit of positivity somewhere. And the text, the Youth Remains text, kind of ties in quite well with Mike's figures, with the guns, the kind of child soldiery kind of vibe. So we wanted it to be kind of bright, accessible, visually quite stunning, but have a wee kind of dark undertone somewhere, like, because I always think that's quite important.
The project was obviously about the Groaty buckies. Well, I came up with the idea of making them out of porcelain and gifting them to the sea and the community, for the whole installation to actually have a life that lived on for many a year. I worked with 4 schools, Cannes Bay, Crossroads, Keys and Thurso HIE, and they all produced an individual Groaty bucky and worked really hard to produce this lovely installation. This weekend we made a paper kiln, which is a structure that's made out of wood, clad in chicken wire, and then clay and newspaper dipped in slip. And that was fired yesterday, and inside that was just pieces that I made to give as gifts to the participants. The welcome from the community here in John and Groats has been astounding. I mean, people have come back day after day to participate in what I'm doing here, and it just fills my heart up with love, basically.
Oh no, I haven't done that one.
This is a project called Groats, and basically it was looking at traditional northern things, and I suppose really for me part of it was understanding that they've been attempting to instill some kind of enthusiasm for regeneration in John and Groats for a long, long time. I read a book that was done in the 60s, and that was what they were looking for even then. So this idea of building something that has more energy. So I looked at what I thought might create energy and might create buy-in. So the projects that I came up with and proposed were both projects that would work with folk to hopefully attract them enough to want to participate as in local folk, but also that it would be interesting and give a little bit of a spectacle for folk visiting and an attraction. So the one is the Dream Boats, which are all these wee boats. We've got 100 boats, and all the sails have got the foresail is a story of a family, or whatever you consider your family to be, and then the mizzen sail is a dream or a hope for the future. And so those will sail off. We'll put them in the sea on the Sunday, and hopefully they'll travel as far as they're able. But they really do. They sail quite bonny. So the idea, I think, for me, is that idea of transforming something that maybe has kind of stagnated a bit inside folk, to then instill a kind of a sense of joy or participation. And the same with stories. The story trail that I'm doing is about encouraging folk to look at telling stories and to speak to the bairns about the different things that have happened in the past, or traditional stories. So that's what I've been doing in schools, and that's what I've been encouraging folk to do. So I'm totally fortunate in that I could have ended up having to do all those stories myself, but local folk have actually come on board, and I have a whole series of local people that are going to tell different parts of the story around here about this area. So I'm totally chuffed.
If you go on YouTube, you see loads of people's video of them arriving at John and Groats, and it's that long straight, and they must all hate it. And then I thought it would be really nice to excite it somehow or other, punctuate their journey, the last mile. And the connection in this place with sailing and boats is so strong that just to suddenly turn them into ships was irresistible. It had to be of the place, and it seems, again, if you look at superficially at John and Groats, you get the picture of the post and people pointing to where they came from, and you don't really get much idea that people actually exist here. And so it was a way of kind of turning the harbour into the village square and promenading the population in there. And there are so many images of old of the harbours being full of boats. So again, it's just the joy of filling the harbour up with lots and lots of sails and allowing these people to kind of look out from there to us. I'd worked with some of George's words before, and they are of this place as well. They talk of things that he recognises here, and it was just that kind of they needed to be the kind of verbs that joined the people up, which were the kind of nouns. The people were like the verses, and George's poems were the kind of choruses that were just establishing the richness of around here.